Okay, this is the Algebra 2 Trigonometry review, second page. Here we're going to convert each angle to degree, round to the nearest hundredth. If we're converting to degree, then that means that these are in radians. So this one has pi by it, but this one doesn't have a pi by it, but it's still in radians. So we're looking to multiply by some version of 1. We know that 360 degrees is equal to 2 pi, so we could have that. Or if we reduce it, remember that we've got, this would be pi over 180, or this one over here would be 180 over pi. If we want to go from radians to degrees, I'm going to use this one where we divide by pi. So I'm going to take 180 divided by pi. The pi's cancel out. So now this can be some calculator work. I'm going to take negative 4/9 times 180. And then math, enter, enter, didn't even need to do it. We've got negative 80 degrees. Okay, number 12, there isn't a pi in the answer, but we're converting to degrees, so this must be in radians. So I'm going to use that same ratio, 180 over pi. So I'm going to take 5.5 times 180 over pi. This time the whole thing's going to go in the calculator. 5.5 times 180 divided by pi, and we get 315 point stuff degrees, round to the nearest hundredth. So the hundredth is the second decimal place, so we're deciding, do we keep it at 2 or do we go up to 3? Because of this 6, 5 or greater, we have to go up, so it's going to be 315.13 degrees. Okay, 360 is 2 pi, which is 6.28, so it's getting close to 360 at 5.5, so I think we're on the right track. Okay, next we're going to go from degrees to radians, convert to radians, and leave in terms of pi. So that means this ratio is the more useful one. And one of the students said, okay, you just take what you have, divide by 180, and stick a pi next to it, which is exactly right. I'm going to take this, divide by 180, whatever that fraction is, we put a pi by it. So let's see, negative 130 divided by 180. I get that decimal. I'm going to hit math, enter, enter, and it gives me negative 13/18. So my answer is going to be negative 13 pi 18. Okay, let's do the same thing with this one. 560 divided by 180, and then we'll end up multiplying by pi. So 560 over 180, math, enter, enter, 28 pi ninths. Okay, find the coterminal angle between 0 and 360 to each of the following. So let's just remind ourselves of what a coterminal angle is. If I were graphing, or let's see, showing this angle in standard form, it's going in the negative direction down. This much would be 90 degrees, and it's going negative 120. So this little bit's 30. This is 90, right? We're headed like that. So we want a coterminal angle between 0 and 360. So we start at the initial side and travel around to the terminal side. So this would be 180 degrees, this much, and then here we have 60 degrees more. So our answer is going to be whatever 180 plus 60 is, which is 240 degrees. Now you might be thinking there's an easier way to do this, which is true. You could take negative 120, since it's negative, you're going to add 360 to it, and once you get a positive answer between 0 and 360, you found it. So 240 degrees works out just fine there. Okay, this one, 480 degrees, if I were to graph it, 360 is once all the way around the circle, and let's see, that leaves us with 120 more to go, I think. Right, so it's kind of ending right there. Well, if we do a coterminal angle, it just begins there and ends at that. So it's going to be 120. One way to check this, or the fast way to do it, is take 480 minus 360. 120 is left over, that's the one we want. So if we have a positive number that's bigger than 360, you can subtract 360 away from it. That takes away one of the loops around the circle, and we're left with that remaining part of 120 degrees. Okay, if we use that rule on 900, this is bigger than 360, so I'm going to subtract away 360. So we go 900 minus 360, I get 540. Still too big, so subtract 360 again. So this is looping around the circle a couple of times. That leaves us with 180, and that is between 0 and 360, so that's the one we want. If we were graphing at 900 degrees, it would go around the circle once, then again, that's 720, and then it would end right there. Okay, so that's 900 degrees. So our coterminal angle is just going to go right there. Okay, I think we can still do this one. This says find the exact value of each expression if the expression is undefined, write undefined. Okay, this is a hint that our unit circle is what we want to use. So don't use your calculator to find the exact value. Sometimes you can find it there, but oftentimes you will need your unit circle. So here's what we created before. I'm going to look for the place 3 pi halves. 3 pi halves shows up right down here, and it was asking for sine. So remember, the first term in the order pair is cosine, second term is sine. So sine at 3 pi halves is -1. Tangent at 150 degrees. We already found all the tangents out of these, so if we head over to 150 degrees, tangent is where you take sine divided by cosine. And we already tried this one out, and we came up with -√3/3. Cosine at 225. Here's 225. Cosine is the first term listed, so it's -√2/2. We could test these out on the calculator as well, by the way. So let's do that with tan 150. So like I said, we won't get the exact answer. It's going to give us a decimal approximation, but we can compare with what we had. Let's see, I want a negative in front of that, but I'm just going to remember it's negative. -√3/3 is the same as tan 150, so I'm coming up with the same thing. So I should have started with negative, and then they would look exactly the same, but we can compare and see that we're on the right track. If I want to do sine of 3 pi halves and check it in my calculator, because it's talking about radians, I need to go to radian mode. So I'm going to hit mode, head down to radians, go back, and then I'm going to try sine of 3 pi halves, and that gave me -1, just like what it was talking about. Okay, cosine at 225, we can try that out too. I need to go back into degrees. So let's try cosine 225, that's that. And we have -√2 divided by, let's close that parentheses of the square root, divided by 2, -0.707. So I'm on the right track. It's a way you can compare to make sure you're finding the right numbers. 7 pi 6, cosine of 7 pi 6 is what we're finding next. So on my unit circle, I'm looking for 7 pi 6. Here it is. The cosine at that term is -√3/2, the first number listed. So -√3/2. Tangent at pi. Here's pi. Tangent is taking sine divided by cosine, 0 divided by -1, so tangent is just 0 here. Sine of 4 pi thirds. Here's 4 pi thirds. Cosine, sine, so we're looking for -√3/2. Might be running out of time on this. I'm going to pause there, and then we'll hit the next part.